That's exciting. All right, welcome to session number 2 of your math experience. Today I will go through the second half of that presentation, and then after today I'll post those slides and you can look them over. I'm not sure how important they'll be moving forward, but they do remind you of all the topics that will be covered. And then after that, we're going to, once again, methodically go through a test, but we're going to do it differently this time. What we will do is we will actually go through the whole test as one time, so 60 minutes. And I will tell you when 10 minutes is up, and what I will want you to do when that 10 minutes is up, I will want you to mark the question you're at. And so then you can kind of see where the pacing is, where you get caught up every 10 minutes. And I'll already explain this when we do it. And then we will check our answers and discuss things after all 60 questions. So you'll be in for a long haul tonight with that. And then with whatever time we have left, we may do a couple 10 question chunks just to get some more practice. Then obviously, that'll be part of the third practice test. And then there's 2 more after that. So you have 5 practice tests, and you should take them under the best, most real constraints possible when you do this. As we go through the test, or as you take the test, do your best. Once it's go, you clear your mind and you get ready to just focus quickly on each question so you can move on to the next one and move as quickly as possible. I cannot stress that point enough, and it will become even more important next week and the week after that in our science test, because that's even a little bit crazier, I think. All right, so I will share my screen in just a second here. I gotta make sure I'm all set up. Let's see here. Let's get rid of that. Let's get rid of that. And there. All right, I think I can share the screen. Oh yeah, there we go. Okay. Don't forget that if something pressing you have to ask, you can interrupt me if you want, but if it's not so pressing, just wait for the appropriate time. And if you're like, I'll forget it if I have to wait, but it's not the appropriate time, just put it in the chat, and preferably for everybody to see. Even if you think it's a question, you're like, oh, I feel really stupid for asking this question. Yeah, I would say don't worry about it. Every time you have a question, somebody else has the question as well. Yeah, so let's see. Session 2. So I'm just going to kind of just read through this, and then after that we'll get to the testing. So session 2, we're going to go through a vocab list, talk about strategies, and then focus more on the geometry this time. If you recall, last time it was just algebra 1 and 2, and now we're looking at the geometry part. Doesn't go beyond this math. So you don't need to be in upper level math to have success with this test. All right, so I've kind of already talked about this as far as pacing goes, but you do want to pace yourself. Make sure you answer all of the questions. You do not get points off for guessing an incorrect answer. There are tests out there like that. So you have a 25% chance to get a question right, so you might as well go for it. Those are not horrible odds. When you are going through this, get all of the answers to the easy questions first. That's probably going to be more at the beginning of the test anyway, so it follows that logic. But if you're getting stuck on a question, move on. And then you can always go back to those questions that hold you up. So say you have a question that holds you up for 5 minutes. Well, that should be 5 questions that you should be able to answer. And so you've now lost out on 5 questions you could have answered when you were stuck on that one question, and maybe you won't be able to get back to that at the end. So get through those easy questions, and, get the 5 easy questions, and then, don't get the 1 hard question. All right, make sure you read each problem carefully. And once again, answer the question. So the questions can sometimes be tricky. If you read it not carefully, there's probably an answer out there you could choose for those that don't read carefully. Make sure you use the pictures and graphs. You can almost answer the questions just by looking at the picture only, and then just the question. All the other reading might not even be necessary. Use your calculator as much as possible. And then, if you're figuring things out, you shouldn't need to write a ton. So if you're finding yourself writing a ton for a question, that's probably something that's taking too long. Move on and get back to it. Okay. I'm just gonna check this. Okay. How about we just keep it focused on what we're doing, guys? Because I do check the chat, and now that has distracted us. So let's not do that. Okay. There we go. All right, so we got geometry. It's going to be 35 to 45% of the test. So you need to know things like point, line, plane, angle, midpoint. You need to be able to figure out the distance. So say you have a line that goes across a coordinate system, and up or down, and so it makes an angle. And so you'd have to find the distance of that. Maybe if you knew how far it went horizontally, how far it went vertically, it'd be like a Pythagorean theorem thing. Parallel and perpendicular lines are important. Perimeter and area definitely will do that stuff. You should know the formulas for rectangle, parallelogram, circle, triangle, and trapezoid. So get those in your head. I've used them enough in high school where I still remembered them later in life. And then you'll have to do things with volume and surface area. And something that's a little more complex, they may give you the equation for the surface area or the volume. But the areas you should know. And then be able to do transformations. All right. So if you had to find the midpoint of that line, where would it be? You would have to go figure out how far you are between the two x numbers, so 8 and -3. So that would be, 2.5? And then between -1 and 5, that would be 2. So it'd be 2.5, comma 2. Finding the distance of this, you have something. Hey, buddy. Hey, I'm teaching right now, bud. So the distance of this would be something that's at an angle, so it's tough to just see what it is. This would be a Pythagorean theorem thing. Figure out how far you go to the right, figure out how far you go up, and then you can do the, the c squared equals a squared plus b squared equation. You'll see something like this, parallel lines and a transversal, so you have a transversal through there. And ultimately, you should be able to figure out all of these angles based off of the information you were given. So if you had to solve for x here and knowing that this is 45, you should be able to find x. And you should know that if there's a 45 here, well, this line makes an entire angle of 180. So you could find the supplementary angle here. And if you have an angle here and this transverse goes through, you know that this angle here is here, this angle here is here, this angle is here, this angle is there, this angle is here. And so you can make all those connections so you can figure out every single angle with that particular line and transversal. So with perimeter, area, and volume, you got units that you got to be careful of. If you are given a formula, use it. And like I said, which formulas should you have memorized? I would really get those area formulas memorized. Like an area of a cube, you probably should, or the volume of a cube, you should have memorized. It's just length times width times height. Maybe even a cylinder, that would be, pi r squared for the circle on top of the cylinder, and then the height. Yeah, so The more you can memorize them, the better off you'll be. But like I said, you'll be given one of the more complex ones. Here are some transformations. So you have your reflection, you know, basically just like looking at a mirror. You have rotation, and you'll see these questions. And I feel like they're a little bit more towards the end of the test, but don't quote me on that. So you rotate something. If it's in this orientation here, if you rotate it down, it'll have this orientation here. Translation, it keeps the same orientation, but just, you know, moves, it translates. And that dilation is, you take something that's smaller and you make it bigger, dilates. Like think of your pupils dilating, that's when they get big. The one thing you can remember with dilation is the proportions are the same. So if you have this AB length here and you compared it to the BC length here, you know, say AB was 2 and BC was 1, well, that means AB is double BC. Well, you could know that AB here would be double BC. Okay, I'm teaching, bud. Okay. So that's that. Do we have any questions? Okay, why is this not going?
Dad, is this Nikki? Dad, is this Nikki?
Buddy.
Is this Mom's medicine?
I don't know. Can you go see Mom? Thank you. Why is... Bear with me. My Zoom is not being very nice right now. Okay, I got it back. So do we have any questions about any of that? I know I kind of just plowed through it. Like I said, I'll post those things. It's informational, just so you know what to be looking for, what to be, I guess, studying in math as you lead up to this test. You know, you can study the content all you want, but the important things are definitely the test strategies that we're doing. Okay, if there are no questions, what I want to do first, and this will actually take away a little bit of time towards the end because I did forget about this, but I do want to talk about practice test 1. So I don't know if you went home and you did that last part to the test, but I believe I told you the page numbers of how to find the answers and everything. And so what I want to do now is I want to go in your book to page, I'm gonna get my notes quickly here. If you go to page 104, it has a scale score conversion table. And when you go to page 104, it'll tell you, based off of how many you got right on practice test 1, what your ACT score would be for that section. So for instance, page 104, where are we? For instance, if you got 50 right out of 60 questions, you would have a scale score of 30. So you could get 10 wrong and you'd get a 30. So if you're in the 30s on the ACT, you're doing pretty good. When I was your age, I took the ACT one time. The ACT was not so stressed as much. I mean, it did determine if you know where you went to college, but it didn't feel so nerve-wracking as it does now. I got a 26 overall on my ACT, but I think in my math I probably scored higher. But so say I took this test and I got a 26 for the math section, I would have had to get 39 to 41 out of 60. But like I said, I scored higher in math. I think I was a little bit slower reader back then. I could kick this test butt now though. Yeah, so look at that to see what your scale score is. And you know, looking at that scale score, it's probably going to be close to the same for each practice test, but it's not exactly the same. Some of the tests are harder and they figure that out based off of how well everybody does across the whole country or world, I guess. And so it really changes from year to year and from test to test. Okay, any questions about the scale score? So once again, that's on page 104. And we can talk about the scale score of your next practice test after we get done with that test. Okay, if there are no questions, then we're going to get ourselves ready to do practice test 2. Now I'll repeat.
I have a question, if that's okay.
Yeah, let's fire it away.
I have a quick question. So with the English ACT, when we practiced that, there were like sort of patterns that you could see show up again and again. I understand that math is a different subject, so we might not have that. But is there anything sort of like that?
No, in all my experience with the math test, I don't know patterns other than it seems like they really give you the easy stuff first and the harder stuff later. And yeah, that's about all I can tell you. It's not like they have certain type of questions, at the beginning or the end. Yeah, there's not really anything that sticks out.
Okay, thank you.
I wish I had a better answer for you, but that's the ACT. I think the big thing with math, and you'll find this with science as well, so I can't speak to the other subjects, but a lot of times you can look at just the question and then pick out the information from all of the other reading or the table or graph or picture without looking at everything. And that would be the first thing I would always do. The caveat with that is it does cause you to take shortcuts a little bit too much, and you may miss a little piece of information. It might be a perimeter question, and there might be a square inside of a square, and is it asking for the perimeter of the inside square, the perimeter of the outside square, and you just got to be careful with something like that. As I go through the questions myself, my biggest mistakes are just simply I misread or just wasn't careful enough because I'm trying to move quickly. But, it may happen once every 10 or 20 questions for me. But yeah, I think that would be the biggest, pattern I would follow. Read question first, pick out information next. Or actually, no, let me rephrase that. Read question first, look at answer choices second, and then pick out information based off of the question and answer choices. That's the one key thing I forgot to point out. And then after that, if a final get-go is reread anything just to get extra pieces that might help you answer the question. But if you get to a question, it's a concept that you just cannot simply remember. Something like a factorial would be for me. That might be a good thing to right away say, you know what, I'm going to look at this very quickly, but I might just move on right away. And once again, you can always go back to it because you don't want to sit there a long time on one question knowing that you just skipped, you missed 5 minutes of questions. And then you got to just guess on the 5 questions that you couldn't get to because of all that when you just were able to answer the one. Skip it, answer the 5 in the 5 minutes you wouldn't have lost, and then go guess on that one question. It's just better odds. Okay, anything else? That was a very good question. Okay. I kind of feel like, with science, you don't have to remember any content related thing about science. It might help you a little bit, but a lot of times they use these really complex words that that you just won't remember even if you are an expert in the science field. But with math, I really think it is good to be able to remember a lot of that content, probably more than anything. But once again, it still comes back to strategy so you can get through all of these questions in the most effective way possible. Okay. So as I said before, we're going to go through practice test 2. And you are going to have the whole 60 minutes. And the only thing I ask you to do is when I call 10 minutes, so I'm going to call every 10 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 40 minutes, 50 minutes, and you're done. I want you to mark where you're at, because it's all about being strategic with our pacing here. Okay, after the first 10 minutes, was I able to knock out 20 questions? Awesome. Just so you know what your pace is for that first part of the test. And then the next 10 minutes, was I only able to knock out 6 questions? Okay, what happened there? But then you can be more direct with where your tough spots are and where the easy spots are. And that might help drive patterns for you as well. Okay, let's see. Now on page, get to my notes again. On page 358, that begins the practice test 2 for math. That's where we are going to begin. The practice test is 60 questions, just like the real one. And then we'll end up going to page 375. And after we're done with that, I will give you time to, well, I'll tell you what the answers are so we can just get that done so you can see what your score is right away. And then I'm going to give you time to look at the explanatory answers. And then we'll just see how much time we have left, if any. It probably won't have any. And then we'll call it a night. Now, if you go through practice tests 3, 4, and 5 in the future, obviously we won't be able to do it during our sessions because we will be doing science for the next 2. I'd be more than happy to discuss anything about ACT with you guys during win times. I know Ms. Dow threw that out to you as well. But yeah, just keep that in mind, especially if you are buckling down and doing those other practice tests, which I highly, highly, highly recommend. Please, please, please use us as a resource to help you as much as possible. Okay, so I am going to, let's see, what do I want to use as a timer here? I'll do my phone. Okay, if you are all ready to go, I'm gonna let you guys have at it here. So, any last thing before we get going? Okay. Was there a question?
What page are we on?
Oh, page 358.
All right, thank you.
And then we'll go to page 375. All right. Ready, set, go. Teacher. 10 minutes. Mark where you are in 10 minutes. 20 minutes. Mark where you are in 20 minutes. We're at 30 minutes, the halfway point. Mark where you are at the halfway point here. 40 minutes. Mark where you are in 40 minutes. 50 minutes. Mark where you are in 50 minutes. 10 more minutes to go. All right, pencils down. Your hour is up right now. Mark where you are. Okay, what I want to do is I want to go through the answers, just give you the answers, and then that will pretty much take us to the end. I can stick around for a little bit if people have questions, but I'll tell you what page numbers to go to for the explanatory answers, and then the scaling score, which actually you might be able to talk about before we leave. Okay, so here are the answers to the test. Practice test 2. 1, C, 2, G, 3, C, 4, F, 5, B, 6, K, 7, E, 8, K, 9, B, 10, H. And by the way, these these answers are on page 882 in your book. Number 11, C. Number 12, J. Number 13, B. Number 14, F. Number 15, B. Number 16, J. Number 17, E. Number 18, J. Number 19, A. And 20, G. All right, 21, C. 22, K. 23, E. 24, G. 25, D. 26, K. 27, C. 28, H. 29, A. 30, F. 31, B. 32, G. 33, B. 34, F. 35, B. 36, H. 37, A. 38, J. 39, B. 40, F. Okay, 41, D. 42, J. 43, B. 44, G. 45, A. 46, J. 47, E. 48, K. 49, A. 50, F. 51, B. 52, J. 53, C. 54, G. 55, A. 56, K. 57, A. 58, F. 59, C. 60, K. All right, those are the answers. Once again, the answers are on page 882 in your awesome big ACT book. What you can also find in your book is on page 885 is the scale score conversion table for practice test 2. And that can tell you, based off of how many you got right, what your ACT score would be for that section. So for instance, for math, say you got 50 right, 20, no. Say you got 50 right, that would get you a 31. If you were able to get 57 correct, so 57 out of 60 or anything above that, you'd get 36.
What
So
page
that'd be
is
like
that?
getting 100%. Is there a question?
Yeah, what page is that?
That's on page 885.
All right.
Going back to my great old score of 26, I would have had to get anywhere from 40 to 42 correct on this test. All right, so the explanatory answers for this are on, I'm just going to pull up my notes really quick. The explanatory answers are on page 434 to 454. Once again, the explanatory answers are on pages 434 to 454.
Wait, what page was the conversion thing?
The conversion was on 885.
Oh, okay.
And the scoring key is on 882. And the explanatory answers are on pages 434 to 454. And you can just check those over on your own time because we are getting to 7:30 here. So check out those 10-minute marks because, going back to Jack's question about any patterns or, and such, check out those marks and see where your questions were the fastest and where they were the slowest. And my guess is it took you longer to do the end questions and it took you a lot quicker to do the beginning questions. And so hopefully you can see that pattern. And, see how many you got ahead of the game at the beginning and then see how many you fell behind as you went through the test. Come on, guys, get that back to us. All right, so that's all I really have. Once again, you have 3 other practice tests you can do on your own. You can obviously find me through WinTime if you need help with anything. You can, I'm in room 37 down in the bottom. You need to stop. Hang on. I'm almost done. Yeah, and so at this point, if you would like to go, you can. If you want to stay on, if you have any just pressing questions right now, we can discuss them. Okay, you two need to go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See you, Mr. Hanson.
See you later. You need to hold on. Hey, Anthony, are you good to go?